Hello.
Hi, everyone. Chad, you're with us today. That's a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Very cool. Derek should be here shortly. I was just on a call with him, so
Cool. Yeah, we're right at the top of the hour, so no worries. Usually takes a few minutes for everybody to get on because we're just life, right? I always think it's funny that we do it when we're in the office and we do it online as well, that we just do meeting, and we don't give ourselves a break. And I'm like, how do we do this?
no. I don't know, maybe like one of the how we work policies could be put a 5-minute buffer at the end of the meeting or something.
It's supposed to be there, but we tend to ignore it a
Yeah.
little.
Yep. Hi, Cassandra.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Did Chad leave us? Chad was here for
Might
a
have.
second, then left. Maybe he was like, "Whoa, I didn't realize this was docs."
Maybe.
He's
Oh, no,
tired
he's
of seeing
back.
Oh,
me.
he's coming. Yeah, that's fine.
Hello.
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 Hello. This is good. I am hoping someday that we'll actually have more community members, but for today, I'll take it, right?
Well, me and Imran do come frequently, so there's
That's
that.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
It's chillier here today. It's damp and a little bit still cloudy and windy. It's been like that all week, but today it seems much cooler than it's been. It's odd for July. Not used to that yet.
That is strange for a July day.
Yeah, it feels odd. I mean, I go outside and it still feels, like summer or spring, but my study, as we call it studies because there's a lot of dust in here, and it feels cooler. It's in a really shady part of the yard in the back of the house, and so it always feels a little cooler than the rest of the house, and it feels really cool in here today. I'm like, I'm chilly on this July 23rd day.
My desk is right over a vent, so when the AC is running, I am generally chilly through most of the day, so I'm like
I bet.
bundled up a little bit.
It's like in the office. There were a couple of places in Cave 2 that I was like, so don't sit here unless you're a hot person. So Dell, you sit here, because Dell was always like, I'm burning up. I have to sit somewhere where there's a vent. I'm like, okay, so this is your spot. And I think Ashley used to sit there and she would freeze. So I was like, okay, well, anybody who sat there but Dell would freeze is actually what happened because it was chilly. It was right over a vent. It was so strange to go into the caves because the temperature was vastly different in spots. And it's like, oh,
Oh yeah.
That's weird. I remember it being like that in school though too. Like you'd go into some classrooms and be like, why is this classroom so cold? And even the teacher would be like, I don't know.
That's how the meeting rooms were in the old office too. Like
Right.
the one in the corner that had windows on 2 walls was always very consistently freezing.
Yeah, on both ends, because we had one that faced east and one that faced west.
That's
and so
right.
depending on the time of day, that you'd go in there and be like, man, it's really hot in here. Man, it's really cold in here.
Yeah.
That's one of the work from home benefits. Like, I can have my house as warm as I want it to be, and nobody's going to complain because I'm the only one here.
Yeah, or like I can change clothes, right? Like that was always my thing. Is sometimes I'd go into the office, and it'd be summer, and so I'd be wearing summer clothes, and it'd be so chilled with AC that I'd be like, so I needed to wear a winter outfit. Didn't know that till I got here.
I used to keep a hoodie and a blanket, like this little lap blanket that I got from the crew at my desk when it was cold. It was funny too. The office, the leadership team had improving. The last time I actually worked in an office, there were 4 of us, 2 girls and 2 guys. So there was this constant thermostat battle, like every stereotype you can think of. And the girls kept wanting it to be warmer.
It's funny. Yeah, I've met a few people that cross that divide, both ways. And I'm always like, okay, so it's not just women and men.
No, my partner's that way. He's always like, I tend to run cold all the time, and he's even more so than me. I'm like, how does that make sense? You're a guy. That's not how it's supposed to work.
Yep. Happens. Cool. Well, we're 5 minutes after. Should we get started? We're going to talk about a doc jam today.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
Woo!
Doc Jam.
I'm excited.
All the jams.
Derek,
All
are
the
you
jams.
chairing the meeting? I just wasn't sure who's chairing the meeting. Is that you?
I
Yeah.
can chair the meeting, sure.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, and Elisa, you're going to take notes?
That's right.
I love it. You'll notice that I still haven't taken notes from the internal process meeting we had about docs, and because I can't do both most of the time. So yeah, welcome to Sage.
It's true.
Right? No, it's impossible.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
very possible.
Yeah, you'll have a full conversation, be like, wait, now what did we talk about? Or what
I know.
happened? Without watching the video again or something.
Well, and then
Welcome
I
to the
talked
open hour.
right? And then I talked to Alan later, and that changed everything in my mind. And I was like, I should have written those notes because now it's all messed up. Oh well, I will write them. Go ahead, guys.
So outside of that, I mean, do we have like a little, I mean, is it just going to be mainly talking about the Docs Jam? I know that, well, also that Alan is going to be stepping down from being captain and be more of a community member, and to kind of take the group more in a like team of captains in a way, where we're kind of like to our specialization and that kind of thing. And that, so that it isn't like the captain is dead, the army has failed kind of thing. It could be something
Right.
else. And so in that sense, it was just going to be talking about that, hey, we're also putting those meeting notes now into the Docs Hub, GitHub repo. We started by doing there's some internal talks about the Docs work group and working group, and that hey, we should actually be putting these into meeting notes in the Docs Hub. And the Docs Hub is a separate repo from where the working group stuff is normally located. And I do want to make sure that we update that other repo that is of the working groups to reference the Docs Hub, so that when people are there, I keep forgetting there's like an empty markdown file there that I want to get with some information so that it gets people to go look over at the Docs Hub.
Yeah, did you just want a link?
Yeah, that could just be fine right there, is to say, here's
That's
the link.
probably fine.
Yeah.
It
Since-
should be pretty easy to do.
Yeah. Because we have all that information already inside of the, I mean, at one point too, we should probably review, I don't know, well, at one point we might want to review the README in the working group,
Hmm.
just of the Docs Hub, just to see, is all this stuff still true? And
Yeah,
should we be
totally.
adding new stuff? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Like you'd pinged me on some stuff like that. It's almost like we need to have almost like a schedule, but it's kind of long, almost like a roadmap schedule that says like, oh, but every so often we should kind of review and just put it on the schedule for like like this is what we're gonna do. And maybe all that is like a running agenda
Yeah.
for the working group. Could be that
I love
simple.
that idea. Yeah, where it could just be, okay, let's review anything change here.
Yeah.
No?
So
Cool.
before the meeting, we're gonna go over things that may need to change in the README. So read it before you come,
Yeah.
or whatever. Maybe it's that simple. I don't know. It could be more. It could also be in tickets in that repo. I don't know if that's the right way to go or not. I'm not sure, but
Oh, I see, like a recurring, like a new
a
ticket.
recurring task. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when that ticket gets closed out, a new one is for whenever the next review
For
will
like
be.
quarterly or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
No, I like that idea, because then people could go into that issue and say whatever they want when it does come to updates. So if it is before work group, let's say they can't even make it to the working group, we could, link to the issue and say if there are people think there should be updates to this, they can put it in the issue and we'll talk about it in the working group review of it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
Cool. But also now the main subject of the working group meeting today is about the Docs Jam, which if I'm looking at the meeting notes of last time, we have a date in mind, which looked like it was for Docs Jam in September after Labor Day, a tentative date of September 9th, 2020. Does this still seem to kind of look the case?
Yeah, that's a Wednesday.
I think so.
That's a good question. Is that Wednesday?
Yeah.
What
it's
was that
Wednesday.
date again?
September 9th.
September 9th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We also thought about a doc clinic before that on the 26th, and we may want to think about that just a little bit. There's a couple of things that are shifting with the schedule for open, and so we may want that to be not then, but it could potentially be the week before, like the 19th. Just a FYI. And the clinic is only like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We're thinking of modeling after what you do, Wayne, in the test clinic. So giving like a big chunk of time and actually saying, so here's a focus, or even pulling somebody in that wrote a docs ticket, or maybe for the first one, we even talk about, sort of like the SALT way of documentation. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a good first one could potentially just be here is setting up. Here's almost like from start, cloning the repo down and getting yourself ready for contributing to documentation. Because
Sure.
I mean, there's everything from the GPG signing that you want to get taken care of. There's where is the documentation for a module versus where's the documentation for a topic. And
yes.
and I think that'd be kind of just a cool, because if there's a clinic video before the Docs Jam, and it's almost like some things people could even reference beforehand if they wanted, because I know a lot of people have been like, I see this issue, I have no idea how to fix it, and
Right.
And maybe so they'll open an issue because it just might be considered too difficult for them to contribute to. Yeah,
I think that's a great way to start. I think that'd be a good starting point too, if we did it and we stream it and we record it, because then when we go into the jam session, that's a full day, we already have like an artifact that says, here's how you get started for contributing to docs, right? That we don't have to rehash. We can be like, here's kind of a document or a short version and some key highlights. And if you want to see deeper, there's a whole hour and a half on it.
Yeah, actually, this reminds me of a question I wanted to ask Wayne and probably other people like Tyler, people who have been doing these Twitch videos and these sessions is can we have like a best practices Twitch guide or something? It'd be kind of cool to know everything you've learned from or Cassandra too, right? From using these services, that like, if you're going to do this, here are the here's the gotchas or other best practices for what's worked for people, so that if we start, let's say we alternate new people who haven't done this before, and so they don't have to relearn all the things you've learned during this process.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a good call. We've been doing the Twitches consistently for about 3 months now. This is a while ago, maybe a month and a half ago now. I also met with a friend who has a really successful Twitch stream that had some good tips and tricks for us as well. So that's a good idea. At some point, we should put something together that people can access, because right now we're just like, sign on to Twitch and do your thing. But there's a lot of just setup and behind the scenes stuff, and Tyler knows more about it even than I do. So something I can talk with him about.
Yeah.
Twitch may even have something out
Yep.
there to reference too.
Yeah.
Because you guys have an integration between Twitch and Zoom.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I just made a note to do Twitch best practices guide. That's not something that's going to happen tomorrow, but we can start gathering bits and pieces of it. And it's probably just a good idea to do a Twitch retro anyway, now that I think about it.
Yeah, because like one thing I noticed when watching one of Tyler's recent ones was at the start, he has like the little countdown going, and he's testing like, is my audio actually picking up? You know, and he's doing a bunch of things just to make sure you're not streaming on mute for the first X amount of minutes, and then be like, oh crap, now that this is a recording that's useless up till this point.
Yeah.
The other
Most of this we
thing-
can trim.
Yeah. The other thing about Twitch is that videos on Twitch only last for a few weeks, and then they poof into the ether.
Oh.
So if we want anything recorded permanently, we need to do it on Zoom and stream to Twitch. Or there's like a fairly complicated way to get videos off of Twitch, but it's easier to just set it up as a Zoom meeting if we want it recorded
Stream.
and stream it straight to Twitch. But you have to have a paid Zoom account to have that capability.
Is there,
And Zoom is also, at least my professional Zoom is limited to 60 days for those recordings. It's a little longer than Twitch, but not much. So if I want to preserve something longer than 60 days, I also need to upload it into Drive. And like my Drive is really full. So I've asked Ted, so are we either going to keep this in Zoom or are we going to pay for more in Drive? And I don't have an answer yet. So just FYI, it's kind of a thing.
actually,
I missed that step.
Yeah,
Um,
about that with Twitch, actually, is there like a way to, because I know SaltSec has a YouTube channel,
Mhm.
and you could have categories of things, which means you could have a category of Twitch videos. Do you know if there's a way to export videos from Twitch and then have just them put into YouTube and saved over time?
I
Or
don't
if
know if
we
there
even
is
wanna
from
do that.
Twitch, but I
So-
do that for Zoom. So, and
I bet it's more streamlined if we did it with Twitch.
I was
yeah,
So-
but
And you can use YouTube DL to download Twitch videos, so that is super simple and straightforward to just be like, I want to do it, and yank it that way, and then uploading to YouTube is trivial at that point.
One problem going recording the Twitch route is if you go free, the resolution is going to be very low quality, right? So you'd have to pay for a Twitch account. And the other thing is it's far better to get a free recording software that just records your screen while you're on Twitch or something.
Yeah.
So then you can just easily load it to YouTube and not have to go through Twitch.
That makes
yeah.
sense.
So,
On
who is
OBS,
not familiar with the video upload? Like, what happens to get videos on YouTube? Is anybody not familiar with that process?
in general, or our specific channel?
With how I do it, with how videos go from Cassandra's Zoom to YouTube. Does anybody know how
Well-
that process works?
Yeah, so there's a few of us that do it, and we can give access to more people. It's pretty simple. But it is using YouTube's GUI to trim and to do things with it, to give it the thumbnails and the proprietary stuff. There's other ways that we could do that, I guess. If we are looking for quality, yeah, we would want to not use Zoom or Twitch, and we'd want to use software on whoever's hosting. And that's not exactly where we've gone yet. Zoom is pretty good for what we've already paid for. And after that, I mean, I have some software that does like screen capture and it'll do video. But I
So,
use that because it's my own.
Sorry to cut you off. OBS is an open source free screen recorder. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but it's like really easy
Yeah.
to set up, free.
that's-
Super easy.
we use for streaming on Twitch is OBS, so you can. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you can stream and record at the same time.
If you can.
I attended a Write the Docs demo presentation by the CEO of Snagit, where he demonstrated features coming out in his in their new product. I think those features are out now, and they have the ability to where you can create a template of like the stuff that comes before the YouTube video, and you can just drop in the video into that template, and it's pretty easy to work with. Could be explored if that's good for our purposes. And it can also
Yeah.
edit video.
Yeah, I actually use Snagit, and I just use an older version that's free because it's super simple, but I've used some others in the past, and we could make that simpler. I don't think we have to spend a lot of money to do it to get the quality, because I think that the Zoom quality is pretty good, but it's true that the Twitch quality of recording is less. So just something to keep in mind. A learning.
Yes, so it almost sounds like it would be something like a potential OBS setup to have dual streaming while recording, and then ultimately have a video that could be uploaded to YouTube. Of course, I don't know how that works when you're using Zoom, Zoom integration, because then that's a bit of a different animal, right? Because now you're using Zoom, like how Cassandra's using it.
I mean, right now.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so right now I just have like community events by default just go from my Zoom to Twitch. And I can continue doing that if that's gonna fulfill what it is that we need to do. But if we need another solution or more features or whatever, then we can look at another option. But we have a system that's working right now, so. Totally.
Yeah, I suppose just from a documentation perspective, if there's going to be a point where in the future we'll want to reference videos after we've done them, I guess that's where that part of that long-term, the pipeline, which, you know, so just something to keep in mind. I wanted to bring that up because there's something I was thinking about the other day of since I've not done Twitch before, and let's say I do a docs clinic, I'd like to see kind of what other people have learned and kind of what the long-term goal is for a video that could have good long-term potential.
Yeah, and that video plays into our MVP, this release, of making it easier for contributors to figure out what the heck to do when they get started. If we have a video we can point them to, that's a perfect piece of that.
Yeah, and I think ultimately in the future it'd be cool to have bite-sized ones. You know, that's just a few minutes of here's to do a thing. You know, the larger videos would be daunting. And that's kind of what would suck about having a docs clinic long video is is people be like, cool, I want to contribute to the doc, and then they go, oh, it's like an hour long, or you know, it might look like quite a bit. But hey, baby steps, just with big feet, right? So.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I wonder if we could somebody else that has this skill set that could help it. And this is probably a joint venture between like docs, technical writers, and somebody like Chunga, or maybe even Cassandra has the skill. I don't know, where you could say, give me the highlights and let's put that into a video and shorten it down to less than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, like we have the artifact of this whole hour and a half, but how do we pluck out the things that we really need?
Right, because I mean, each of those steps was contributing to docs, bringing down the repo, and then just, do you have a GPG key with GitHub? You know, that's something that people, I already have that. I don't need to see that video. Then they go to this other video, contribute to modules, documentation. Cool, I want to know that specifically. And that's a shorter video.
That reminds me. So Mo is looking into, because I was talking about, it seems trivial to upload and edit videos to YouTube, but it's really time consuming. I probably spent 5 hours doing it yesterday and I'm still not done. But he's actually looking into, there's a service where you pay like $10 a video and you can just outsource all that editing. And there's different, they can like just do really basic editing. They can do summary overviews, or they can top the videos up in a small amount. So that's one potential workaround.
Oh, some extra input there. So, all right, not to go too far off course. So since we were talking, so that's the docs clinic. Is there any other notes or thoughts that people have about that docs clinic? And it sounded like a tentative date. And I want to confirm, because Sage mentioned a potential different date. Is tentative date August 26th, but Sage, you mentioned maybe August 19th, was it? Or what was the other date you mentioned?
That's right, just 1 week before that as well as a Wednesday. So we, I know we've been doing clinics on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but trying to get away from those dates because they seem to be heavily booked. So I was looking at Wednesdays, and on this call, I can't give details as to why, but I can tell you that the 26th is going to be busy.
Okay.
Just FYI. And so if the 19th works to do an hour and a half clinic, I would move it to that week before.
Okay. Good to know. Good to talk about. Any other thoughts on Docs Clinic? And then we could talk more about Docs Jam stuff. Potentials there. All right. So then Docs Jam. So the Docs Clinic would come first, and then a Docs Jam would be later. It sounds like Docs Jam would be kind of a full day event, September 9th, 2020. And that September 9th is a Wednesday also. And I don't know, Lisa, would you like to maybe speak to how the Docs Jam went in 2019, and or if there are things we want to keep in mind as good things we want to provide people ahead of time, or a good way to go about running these kind of things?
Sure. The Docs Jam in 2019 was only an hour long. So all it really was just a meeting with community members to talk about documentation and what they would like to see in the documentation. That's what it turned out to be. What I think would be more effective for this Docs Jam coming forward is to maybe model it after a recent Docs Jam we did within the company internally with the engineering team. I think Docs Jams are effective when you have a clear set of written out instructions that you're going to go through verbally for people who join at the beginning of the event. But for people who join later, just a clear set of guidelines for what the purpose of the jam is, how they can contribute, what they need to do to spin up the tools to contribute and stuff like that. And then have a clear set of tasks that they can pick out and sign up for and work on. So if you like that model, which I hope that sounds good if that model works, then if we like that, then what we need to do today is decide on what the scope of the Docs Jam is going to be. And I have ideas about what that could be, but I'm open to other ideas. And what kind of tasks we would want the community members to sign up for, and how that would work logistically. There's probably going to be some logistical challenges with any option that we choose. Are you okay with me launching into what my opinion of the scope should be, or would you like to talk about it, Derek? Or
Yeah, why don't you go first, and then we can
Sure.
start seeing what other people's thoughts are on it, and go from there.
I guess the first question is, does everybody feel good about that kind of format where we just kind of like set them up and say, here's the scope, here's what we want you to do, here's the list of things you could do, go, is everybody okay with that kind of format? Okay, sounds good. And I can show you documents of how we did it with the engineering team to see what that would look like in practice. But so my pitch for what I think should be done in the Docs Jam is we should make it module focused. And there's two areas that I think could be beneficial. The first area is one that I like. So reflecting back on our last Docs Jam in 2019, the consistent feedback I got from community members over and over and over again, and I get it all the time, is like, your modules are great. I don't know how to use them. Can you provide me with use case scenarios that we can just add to the module to say, I used this module in this context this way. And then somebody else can say, well, I did something completely different and I used it this way. And just be able to provide like a few different examples of how different sysadmins or whatever have used used that module in context. And that's something that I think would be really appropriate for our community to contribute to, because they have the wealth of that knowledge. So if we were to like narrow it down to a list of modules that we think really could use some community feedback on of how they use it in a use case scenario, get them to type up a blurb explaining how they use it in that context, and then we add it to the doc string. I don't know if that's feasible. We can talk about that logistically. But I think that would be super duper helpful to the entire community. They would love to just have examples of how to use it. Second possible focus on the modules, it comes back to an idea that Alan had when he was originally pitching the idea of the Docs working group. One of the things that he thinks is a pain point for community members is when you come and look at the modules, there's so many modules, and there's no way, they're not tagged in any way to know this is a module that is core to SALT, and you really need to know this, and it's being well supported and well developed in the community, versus some person made this weird sketchy module over here. I don't know if it's sketchy, but some person made this module over here and they posted it to the community. Nobody uses it so much, or it's not actively supported. It's been abandoned. There's no way to know the difference between which modules are strongly supported by the community and which ones are not. And it would be helpful to know the difference between that and maybe have some sort of tagging system in place. And so that could be something that the community could help us with too. They could upvote and say, this module is core to SALT. I use this a lot, you know, and this one is not actively being developed. And so that when you use a fringe module, I guess, buyer beware. You know what you're getting into when you do that, or something like that. Okay, so that's my spiel. Feel free to discuss or suggest other possible focuses for the Docs Jam.
So I really like the idea of and I've heard the same feedback from that you mentioned for a couple of years now, like how you would, or not necessarily like how you would use something, but where and why you would use a particular component of SALT. So like I'm all on board for that. I think that would be a great addition. The point about what is considered core SALT and what isn't considered core SALT, that's definitely something we should do. I don't know if we're quite there yet. And I don't know if I think getting the community's feedback on it is beneficial. But I don't think that's going to be the final kind of authority, kind of final say on what is considered core SALT and what isn't.
That's totally fine. So if it seems like that's a project that's not appropriate for the community, although they should be able to provide feedback, I would assume.
Yeah,
if
no,
that's
for
something
sure.
that
Definitely.
really should be tackled by the core team as opposed to the community, then that makes a lot of sense. So.
Yeah, no, I would say like we definitely want the community's feedback on it. Particularly like there is a lot of fringe modules that we don't necessarily support, but there are a lot of modules that may not necessarily be considered core, but the core team right now is supporting and maintaining those, just because there's no one else to maintain them, and we don't have a process, or we don't have anything in place to distinguish which ones, because they're just they're all provided by SALT right now, so
Right.
they're all basically considered core. But if we run through the list of modules and someone says like, oh yeah, hey, I'm interested in kind of taking on ownership of that particular module, then we can start going through and flagging them and say, okay, this is community driven. This is
Sure.
core.
I think that we need to start. And so we need to figure out where we can start. And I don't think that it's going to be like, so we're going to do all of this at once. It's going to be a work in progress as
Right.
we go. So if we could at least identify the things that we do know today, and then we can put a process in place. And I think this jam with this focus where we said, hey, we want to know some modules and some examples that we could write docs for, is a platform for liftoff to then say, hey, now we're going to find out some more about some of these modules that people are interested in and do have some really good examples for. So then it's going to kind of settle the score a little bit. And then we can look at some of those processes where we go, okay, so this has never been touched, this module, but people use it. So maybe it's not that it's broken, it's good what it does. And so we just need to say that, and we can start separating some of that stuff out. Because I think today we could still say that like, oh, we know that this module, these 5 modules are core to SALT. And so we could just start there, right? And then see what the community brings for examples, because I think that'll help. Is that?
Yeah.
And so I think that goes along with what you're saying.
I was going to say like there are probably, in my mind, I was thinking 3 at least that we could consider SALT, but we could probably get it up to possibly even like 10, like as a start. I mean, off the top of my head, there's the ones that we would consider core just because they're used everywhere. It would be like CMD, file, and state. Those 3 modules are ones that we are probably actively going to maintain.
Probably,
for the foreseeable future.
Imagine things like test and package.
Yeah, test is another one. Like, yeah, all the package modules, probably. But things like, I mean, just looking at, and a lot of these ones are just like random things that I contributed early on of just like, hey, this would be cool to have. There's one that like queries there's a website called random.org. So I wrote a module that queries random.org. I don't think anyone has touched that, but by that token, I don't know if anyone's actively using that one. So like in every discussion we have about like what is considered core, I mean, to Sage's point, like we could look at things and say like, oh, no one has contributed code to this one in 5 years, therefore it's not, no one's using it. But we don't know. We really don't know.
Yeah,
It could be just like, this works, it does exactly what it's supposed to do, and therefore no one has had the need to change it.
I suppose the first thing could be to simply know which modules have tests, because, you know, does random.org have, I mean, are there build tests to go, this still works against their API, right? And it's like, well, this is an untested, like it was tested when it was built. But if there's stuff that is part of the build process continuously tested to go, oh, did we actually break functionality in one of these modules or not? And it's already built there.
Right.
That means already another level of support and stability that all those other modules without them wouldn't have.
I mean, that's another whole other ball of wax in terms of whether or not something is supported, because like there's a lot of modules that we would consider core that do not have the test coverage that they should have today.
Yeah, so it's almost like we need to have, like, before we can get to this point with the docs jam, we need to like think through how we would even know what the criteria we would use to define what's supported and what's not, how we would tag that, you know, what would the appropriate tags be, what information does the community need, and then third, can our docs handle it, can they handle those tags, you know? So yeah, so it might be a little bit premature for this particular project, but I could see a lot of value in it. There's a lot of ways in which it would be good, you know, and not just for documentation, but just to know what we're managing and
Absolutely.
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
That we'll need to know it anyway for the future ideas around SALT and wanting to break out modules anyway, and kind of like going, what's going to be, it's a prereq for some other long-term goals. So.
Right.
Sure. But even if we just opened it up, like the doc jam, if we just opened it up to ask people if they had some examples, and we could give it a number for the doc jam, we're going to focus on modules. And if people have examples where we don't have them, and just see what we get and limit it to maybe 20, I don't know, to pick a number out of the air. If we only get 5 and those are great, and that takes the whole day, let's do 5, you know?
Yeah.
For the case
That
study
gives
example.
us something to, and that gives us a place to start. And then internally with the core team, I think that it would be good for us to join in that, to not necessarily do the doc jam, but to maybe even just say, if we did a survey, like a couple of little surveys that said, so tell me the modules that you use as the core team, and we could just start with those. So there'll be some overlap, but then we could kind of be like, okay, so everybody uses state, everybody uses test, everybody uses, so then we could also just start with those few. And if we don't get examples from the community on some of those that we've identified as kind of core between the core team today, that's just a kind of SWOT, we can, then we can kind of go back to the core team and say, so do you guys have some examples or some tests or some other things there? Because if we only get a few for the doc jam, then we can supplement. But if we get enough, then we can come back to that for a future doc jam or something. I think it would give us a good starting point. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that I suggested a while ago, and I brought it up before, and it gets shot down every time because of privacy concerns, is some sort of telemetry to let us know exactly what portions of the SALT code base people are using. So I still think it might be worthwhile just to revisit it again with Alex and Mo, and just say like, hey, this is the value that this could bring us. What are your concerns around like privacy
Sure.
and sensitive data on people's systems, and how can we alleviate that?
Yeah, or maybe there's another way we're not thinking of to get that data. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the GDPR or whatever the European law is complicates things quite a bit, but
Yeah.
Right.
And
But-
but a starting point, it sounds like would almost be like survey to people attending a docs jam, for example.
yeah,
Like you were
so what
saying,
if,
what do you use? And
exactly, like, so we design a survey. So first thing people do is they take the survey. It's going to give us data about what modules do you use all the time? What modules are like super crucial to you? How do you use it? Because that way we get at least something, like they tell us a little bit there. Maybe we could also give them the option to add their identifying information if they are willing to talk to us about it. Like if we want to just get some more information about their use case scenario, just make that optional, but make it, because it could be good if we see something like that's a really interesting use case scenario, but I need more information. That could be good. So survey, and then second, we have them kind of pick out some of their modules that they think are core and then write up their use case scenario for it. The question then becomes like, how are they going to submit it to me? I think gold star is, of course, they contribute directly to the docs and add a doc string, you know, but I don't want that barrier to prevent people from giving us that data. So there could be another data collection method
well, it
that
could,
we use. Yeah, go ahead.
that even could be like a GitHub issue. Like, hey, this module can be really well used in this way, and this should be out of the documentation. And if they walked through an example and had it simply in a GitHub issue, that could be something ultimately used by someone else who's more familiar with how that would be added to that documentation, that module. And this is actually one of the things I was thinking about for the DocSham in general, is just issue creation. Like there could be a lot of people who are like, actually, I know this documentation here is broken. This documentation here is broken. And then it's like, well, do these even have issues? No. Okay, then contributing an issue is contributing to an open source project. And so right there, having, I know Sage and I talked about docs templates, docs issue templates, and having something like this would be, I think, an excellent thing for a jam, in addition to what we're already doing with the modules, because then for people who aren't necessarily wanting to contribute to modules or have ideas for it, or maybe they do, but they don't know how to get into the code, that's where those templates, that's where those issues can come into play. I don't know, what are thoughts on that idea?
Yeah, what if we had like two pathways and you can kind of pick your pathway? First pathway, well, let's encourage everybody to take the survey, hopefully, maybe. And then like one pathway is, you know, take this, take some of the modules, tell us which ones are core and what your use case scenarios are for it. And then another one can be issue creation / maybe even working on tickets. Like if we have a few marked as good first time user tickets that people could maybe tackle within a short space of time. I'm not gonna like force them to do it, but like if they want to, like if they're fired up and they want to work on a ticket, go for it, you know?
Actually, that part was the other one I was going to mention. Is, let me open this chat quick. This link here is GitHub automatically creates a contributing page. That's almost like, here's all the good first issues. Now we don't have anything labeled as good first issues. So, but we'd be able to, we could beforehand look at docs specific issues that could be considered good first issues for someone who's contributing to docs. But this is the interesting thing about documentation, right? Documentation is a multi-layered problem. It's not just simply, oh yeah, grammar, spelling, formatting. It's also having the knowledge of the document, what the documentation is even referring to. So it's hard to know what is considered a good first issue for docs, because if it's like, this is an issue of what operating systems are supported here, this is an issue of, you know, whatever. But if it's simply, this command is wrong, here's the right command, that's a good first issue, because is really just editing a document. And so, yeah, there could be maybe a issue review before the docs jam.
Yeah, we could use a working group.
Of good
we could use a working group to maybe size a few issues. By size, I'm talking about two things. It can be like it's an easy fix, like something that somebody could do quickly, or up to it's a big fix or something like that. So sizing a few issues that could be good candidates for the doc jam, and then also indicating on it level of expertise that or experience with SALT that might be needed in order to work on the ticket. That those could all help in terms of sizing the tickets for the docs jam. So we could spend another working group kind of identifying and tickets that could be worked on that way.
Yeah, that could be a good lead up to the docs jam, is if the working group is spent on going through that stuff in prep, then at least there'd be not just here's the survey. So it sounds like this is the overall docs jam want so far, based on what people have said, is that survey at the start that's kind of looking at their usage of what modules they use, and use case scenarios that come to mind on like how they use certain modules. And which honestly, that their use case stuff that comes from the survey could later be turned into documentation issues with that use case scenario, because then that could be something that could ultimately then be updated in the module, correct? Like, is that kind of where you're going with that feedback?
If we, by the way, if we want to go ahead and create a few seed issues for the docs jam, I think maybe we should also consider identifying a few seed modules as well, like that like provide at least a short list of modules that we would love to have some use case scenarios for, and not limit it to that. Like, say if you want to write about a different module, that's fine, but it could be good to at least have a short list of, if you could give us your use case scenario for this module, that could be good too. So do you like this idea of these two paths for the doc jam? I think it could be good. Are there any other paths that we need to add that the community could really help with?
And to clarify, the two paths, that is direct contribution to modules with use case scenarios, and then the other one is using the good first issues as reference to work on? Or what
maybe it's more like three paths. There's issue creation, issue work, triage, like you can work on an issue, and then the module case studies. Maybe it's three paths. Is that more accurate, do you think?
So issue triage, module scenarios, what would be the third?
Triage, modules, and then the issue creation, the idea that you first started with.
Issue creation, yes.
They're like, I've always noticed this thing in the documentation that bugs me, but I've never written it down in an issue, right? That's basically what you're saying could be good. So, until we know about it, we can't fix it. So
right, and we say we'll create an issue for it, and there's probably a lot of questions that don't get asked after we say that, because we think that that is a very obvious thing to do. So something to think about as we're looking at this, that we said some templates, but I think we need to get, if we're gonna say this in this doc jam, if this is one of the paths, I'd like to really clearly state how they do that exactly. This is going back to that, we say, oh, create an issue, and we think we all know what we mean, but we need to be really explicit, and almost it sounds stupid to us that we're like, I have to tell you how to do that, but we need to go back to that rudimentary. If I am completely new to this project, how do I know how to do that? There should be some really obvious steps, because today we do a couple of different things in the contributing guide and the contributing docs, and those are different in the RST versus the MD file, and none of those are exactly the same. So this would give us a good way to say, this is how you contribute a docs issue, and then we can make that the same everywhere, and we could even put that in the docs hub. That can go in all the places if we got that down really well. And then that'll also give us a point to say, this is just how you contribute a regular issue too.
Yeah, right. This is something we should be doing anyway, right? So
yes.
As you're talking, it makes me realize, like, it could be good if we're having three pathways, it could be good to have like three pathway captains. Like, I'm your helper elf who will be helping people who want to join this pathway, and I'm gonna cheerlead you and help you and make sure you're connected to the resources you need to work on your stuff. So I have a question about logistics, and I don't know how you're doing the port jam. Cassandra, is there going to be like the way we did it for engineering is we just had an open Zoom room where people could just come and join and learn, like get kicked off and learn about the project, the jam. And then they went off and worked on their own. What I wonder if we had like a main Zoom room that's like you want to join the doc jam, come here first and we'll help you out and we'll just meet you and say hi. And then there could be like the breakout rooms for the different pathways, and you can join breakout rooms depending on where your interests are and talk to other people who are working on similar issues and get any guidance or help throughout that. I don't know. So I don't know about logistically how these things are going to work.
I think this is a great use case for the breakout rooms, because if we're doing 3 different paths, it makes sense to put you all out in separate rooms, and that's just something that in Zoom, whoever hosts it needs to put, needs to enable breakout rooms. So how I've done it for the PR Jam, and again, this is the first time we've done it, is I have a recurring 8-hour meeting from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on Zoom. I'm just going to leave my Zoom up basically that whole time because somebody needs to have a paid Zoom. So I'm just going to leave my Zoom up the whole time, and then everybody else can join and leave at leisure. And then I dropped links in here of the preparation doc we're sending out to people so they know what to look at ahead of time. And then the schedule that I'm working on as well. So you can see kind of how I'm trying to set this up. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, I think logistics, I'm open. This is the first time doing this. I'm just going off of, I've attended a handful of virtual events in this new weird COVID world, and I'm still thinking Zoom has the best capabilities. And I've attended a couple things where people broke out into breakout rooms based on types of events they were organizing, and that worked out really well. So
I'm loving that Muppet GIF. That's pretty awesome.
that was all Wayne. That was Wayne, and he just edited
Yeah,
it for the
Wayne.
Well, we have
Wayne and I are
really...
discovering we have so many interests in common now. So.
It could be as well, and this group tends to be really organized, and so whatever suits you guys' needs, we can kind of do. And I think that it may make sense to just give it a Zoom room link, or breakout rooms. Both of those work. The thing that I really like about the breakout rooms is that then it forces everybody to come back to a singular room, and they don't have to guess. So that's a big advantage. The thing that I like about giving it up front is that we know where we're going to be, and that tends to be this group, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what my Zoom room is. I want to know what time. I want to know when it's scheduled. And other groups that we work with don't tend to be that way. So I want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the group. So you guys tell me which one. You guys tell us which one you think meets your needs better, and we can go that route. We could be as really, really stipulating and say it's this and this and this and this and this, or we could be a little looser.
There are some nice things about having it stipulated like that, so that like at real life conferences that I've helped salt stack for, it really helped to know when I was going to be able to take a break, or something like that. So,
and I'm always looking for an agenda, because I'm like, what if I change my mind?
Yep.
Right? Or what if I don't care to go to any of these, and so I get a break,
Mm-hmm.
And I like to have something that's set up like that. I tend to be more organized in that way too, that I'm like, but I want to know where I'm going to be and what room I need to be in. So I want to have that all laid out for me. I know other people aren't that way, but that's how I feel. And so I would rather have an agenda that I could go back to that says, here's the main room, and I could click on it whenever I need to, instead of it kicking me back. That's me. I don't know if that's the rest of this group, but that's how I would, yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you.
So then we could break it up into, like, I mean, I can go in and make on my account several Zoom meetings that have different IDs that are set for this time at that time that will only last that 2-hour block or whatever. And then we have a main room where we use Cassandra's or something like that. That's a full day. There's other things we can do there that make it easier for the needs of the group. But I'm willing to be a captain of one of the streams. I'd probably want to do the issue one, like create an issue.
You'd be really good for the issue one. Maybe we need like a couple of people so that it's not so much pressure for one person to be there 24/7 all day, or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's why we're splitting into shifts for the community. I figure 2 hours is a good chunk.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having people select the times they want so that people can look at the rest of their schedules and figure out when it's convenient.
So we could do something similar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of.
I'm willing to help, however. Yeah.
Well, we're starting to get a little low on time. Is everybody liking the direction this is going? the 3
Yes.
pathways and the 1 day. I like these 3 different paths, and so what we could probably do maybe at a future working group meeting is begin hammering out more of the logistics for the Docs Jam and making sure that all the documents and agendas and issues and modules are in place for that.
Yeah, should we even
Yep.
take some assignments?
Yeah, because we'd want the main things, right, would be that do we have a docs issue template in a place that we want it to be? And if not, that would be definitely a pre-assignment, right? The other one would be to have the agenda in place well beforehand. So Sage, are you saying like who should these be assigned to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
Good
take
question. We'd love to volunteer.
I
Yeah.
can take the assignment of creating our kickstarting document, the instructions that we're going to provide to people that will explain the different pathways, and I'll take the task of creating that first draft.
Kind of the prep doc that will
Yeah.
turn into several different things. Like it'll turn into the agenda, it'll turn into the setup, it'll turn into the schedule. Yeah.
So I
That's
don't
good.
mind taking that on.
So I can get the template up. I do need to know where you guys want it and where we're gonna push people. I will say that I think it goes in Salt, in the Salt repo, although that has problems and we may want to rethink that later. I don't think that today it makes sense to do it in any other place except for maybe the Docs Hub. So and maybe it's both. We could do both.
Yeah, it could be that the template is created and then we duplicate it across.
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose you're saying kind of what do we want to do long term with it, and should we? Because the other thing is that we'd ultimately want to be updating our contribution guides to point, like you said, just telling someone to open issue isn't really enough. It'd be nice to have a thing that's like, actually, here's the step by step and actually how you even go through what we're talking about.
Yes.
And if that ultimately means, I know that Alan is working on, if he's able to, in his free time, on automation around the issue duplication.
Right.
Because he wants that synced in Docs Hub. And, but yeah, no, so that's good.
Yeah, so
maybe
for now, so for now we can do one in Salt that we may put across the org in GitHub. If you guys have a template you want me to start with, or if you want me to make one up in like an MD file, I think they're all MD files is what they are. We can start with one that looks kind of like Docs. We had one originally that Ashley gave me for Enterprise that I really liked. And we could kind of base it off that if you want to just start there and we can collaboratively work on it.
Yeah, we can make it easy actually by first having you contribute it to the Docs Hub repo, because then and we could respond and make any adjustments or anything to it. And then when it's all good, then it's easy to submit without additional documentation overview feedback to the Salt repo. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we do that way.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, we're getting to a close here. Is there anything else assignment-wise? Well, the Docs Clinic is something, are we going to talk about that in the next working group?
Yeah, the next working group is August 6th, so we do still have some time to flesh out the details related to that.
I like that. Cool.
Any other action items anyone's willing to take on?
Oh, was there going to be the Cassandra with the Twitch best practice stuff, or I don't know, or maybe something else?
I did note that, that Cassandra, you're taking on the first tasks of researching how to create a Twitch best practices document. So,
yep.
Okay. And I guess like the only other thing is that when are we gonna like commit to? I guess what's the date we are throwing around? When are we gonna commit to whether it's September 9th or not? Or should we just commit to it?
We just need to pick a date. And once we pick a date, then it like fires that planning process.
Sounds good.
If it's September 9th, I'm happy to do it.
I vote for September 9th.
Okay.
How's everyone else feel?
All right. Elisa, I'll probably get with you then because one of the logistic steps is getting the thing up on the community site.
Okay.
And start promoting. So I'll get with you on wording for that event in the next couple weeks and we'll get that put up and I'll announce the date. I do a weekly what's happening at SaltStack post on Mondays, I'll announce the Docs Jam date on the What's Happening.
Okay,
Um,
sweet.
Cool. All
Yay,
right.
I'm excited. This is good stuff. I'm excited for it.
yes.
So.
All right. This was an excellent meeting. And Elisa, I'll talk to you after this meeting just to get the meeting notes figured out and contribute to the Docs Hub repo. And we'll post that link in the Salt Stack Community Docs channel.
Okay,
All right,
sounds
cool.
good.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.